We were married. So it's a magic word. For anybody who doesn't understand why we want it and why we need it, okay, it is magic.
Today's oral argument tells the story and tells the lesson of why it is we have a Constitution to bind us together as citizens of one nation, all of whom are guaranteed the equal protection of the law. Our Constitution deserves Edie Windsor, and Edie Windsor deserves our Constitution.
A few minutes ago, we came out of the front door of the Supreme Court. Over that door is written the words, equal justice under law. That's what we're asking for here today. Equal justice under federal law for all of the legally married gay couples in the United States.
All right, that's some of the reaction after today's proceedings at the High Court. We mentioned before, Mark, that you probably had some sweaty palms when you went before the High Court.
I was heavily medicated.
Yeah, well, probably not a good idea here. At least we know you weren't grilled by Clarence Thomas. But anyway, so to that end, first off, what don't we see from the outside? We see the big building, we see the columns, and we'll hear the audio finally, but what don't we see that at least surprised you when you finally went through the process?
Well, it's fun. I mean, Alan
it's
would
moot
probably
court on
say,
steroids.
yeah, it is, and you've had half a dozen moot courts to prepare, so you've been grilled a lot. So it's almost like a walk in the park when you get up there, and it's like any other argument that you do. Once you start opening your mouth, you relax. These people are human beings, and as you can see from that photo, you're very close to them. Yeah. They're sitting in an exalted
And they jump in just as soon as they want to ask a question, just like I just did?
Yeah, exactly. So it's more like a conversation with some very formidable, very intelligent, and really intimidating people.
You know, Alan, guys, we use polls here every night. We've shown some already. And obviously public opinion, with as much velocity as any issue, has changed so much on this. And if you look generationally, it's only going to get, you know, the accelerator is only going to go down in terms of support for this. The court itself, do you think it is swayed by public opinion? And if they choose to say, well, we'll disregard public opinion because our reading as strict constructionists, let's say, is different than what the public feels, do they risk legitimacy if they do that?
I think that the court is not poll-driven in the sense that they're going to, their majority vote is going to correspond with whatever the latest ratings are out in the public. However, they are members of the society. They're citizens. They're reading the same things all of us are. And of course, they're conscious of that. And a very specific example of that is Justice Roberts' decisive fifth vote to uphold so-called Obamacare. A lot of people, court watchers, have speculated that that really reflected, in addition to the erudite, although controversial, legal analysis he used to get that result, his concern about the long-term institutional reputation of his court. He is the Chief Justice, after all. Yep. And in that sense, I believe, you referred earlier to Plessy versus Ferguson, and you were alluding to the miscegenation case of Loving against Virginia in 1967. I don't believe Justice Roberts wants his court to rule on the merits in either of these cases, Prop 8 or DOMA, in a way that situates the court or aligns it with an anti-gay position. Whether or not that's the way a decision upholding DOMA would really read, I don't think he wants his institution to be on the wrong side of history.
Andrew, it's not healthy for the country when we look at some of the poll numbers, speaking of numbers, their confidence in the court has gone down in recent years. Yep. We don't want to have a place where we think it's a third political arm of government. We all know depends on the president, who picks the justice, who gets confirmed. We have an idea which side of the ledger, and they're usually right, not always, but usually. But we don't want it to be, we just elected a Republican or a Democrat.
And you see that the numbers have slid in terms of public confidence in the Supreme Court or public opinion of it. We don't want our courts being overly political, so Bush v. Gore took a chunk of credibility out of the court. That may have factored into what Roberts' decision was on the health care law, but Roberts took a political swipe today also. There was a quote that I think we have with him talking about President Obama and enforcing the laws. I don't see why he doesn't have the courage of his convictions and execute not only the statute, but do it consistent with his view of the Constitution. I don't see the enforcement of these laws isn't part of the lawsuit. It's not
Does
part of
this
the
happen
case.
more often
What
than
was
I
he
think,
doing?
where they take
No,
a shot
the-
at a sitting president?
Well, you know, I think that when the court takes a case like this, I mean, its institutional credibility is at a low the higher the political stakes are. And it seems to me, I totally agree with Alan, and we talked about this in the context of the healthcare debate. Roberts has an institutional legacy to be concerned about. Why they would wade into the thicket of this now, when it's not really ripe, it hasn't percolated and matured fully throughout the courts of this country, it seems to me that whatever they do, they're going to get slammed in this case. And I just think that when the court is passing on these palpably political questions, like in Bush versus Gore, and this one, this can only give the court a black eye, because somebody's going to be
It was a
upset.
cheap shot at the president from the Chief Justice?
Well, you know, it goes back to the public opinion questions. Say that, you know, the majority of Americans have very little trust in Washington. I think I got to actually agree with my colleague. I think it goes back to the fact that this decision will not be based on merit. It will be based on, is this appropriate for the federal courts to adhere to? And I think that's the bottom line at the end of the day.
Richard, may I just say one thing on this point as well? There's institutional politics as well as national politics. And in some ways, I believe among Justice Roberts' social and political and professional circles, including among his brethren and his sisters on the court, he took a hit, at least on the conservative side, with his decision in the healthcare case. And I think in his use today in such a high-profile forum of that occasion to take a shot at the president, in a way, might have been try to shore up his own status. Is that the second point I want to make? Because I agree with very much almost everything Mark just said. One place I disagree is with the prediction or anticipation of horrible fallout for the court and its reputation if the court wades in and really decides these cases on the merits. I disagree, and here's why. The common analogy that's often invoked in support of that position is Roe v. Wade. You know, nothing but trouble and debate and argument and unhappiness around the country, roiling. It's still out there roiling. But the issue, this isn't that kind of case. This isn't a case where the court is wading in on an issue where one side believes the result of upholding a certain law is going to be the death of a child in utero. This is a case simply about extending rights to citizens. And for that reason, from my conversations and my work professionally, I actually don't anticipate the kind of negative response that
Oh no, that's
some do.
not what I was referring to. I think that when you're deciding cases on the basis of politics, because there's clearly no clear-cut legal answer to any of this, it doesn't matter how they come out. I just think that it's not, you know, it's going to be a patently politically motivated decision. To me, the result of it is not so important. I don't think it's going to be polarizing and roiling in terms of the result. It's the process that troubles me.
Did you say you think it will be a political decision, politically
Yes,
driven?
I think it'll be politically driven, because I don't think if you can parse these transcripts and the briefs from yesterday and today, and from today until doomsday, and they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. It's quite clear that they don't.
That's very reassuring.
By the way, I'm going to
interesting
send
point.
this transcript to the court the next time Mark goes before them. All right, Alan,
I
thank
don't
you
mean
very
that they're
much.
entitled. They just don't know what the
hedge now,
answer is.
pal. You're already deep water. All right, and you at home, please keep the conversation going online. Should DOMA be overturned? We'll get to more of your reaction later. We take a quick break, though, and when we come back, we're going to take you to Lower Manhattan, where, speaking of a controversial case, stop and frisk on trial. Trial continued today, and Dominic Carter's there live with us. We'll join him shortly. Please stick around.